I greet you in the spirit of our Creator, Mother, Father, energy of life, revealed to all and known by many names. It is by that strength and power that we're able to gather here this night, and we've already began, as is traditional for African people, to begin all things with the acknowledgement of our Creator, however we refer to the Creator. We, as enlightened spiritual people, don't get crossed up with how we call it, just so we call it, because we know that's one thing Africans know if they don't know anything else. And I think the one thing that would be the worst curse that could ever occur to us, more than anything else, is to find ourselves separated from our Creator. Above all things, and our enemy knows that, and that's why he's given us false ideas about our Creator, because he knows that's the most precious thing in life to us. We want, to use their term, I don't like the term, but it's a convenient one, we want God in our lives, one way or the other, however we understand that. And therefore, the reason why we're like that, as we will be discussing tonight, is because the Creator, in the divine wisdom of the mother and father, the nature shows that the very first people that would represent the Creator on this earth, that would represent the glory and beauty of the Creator on this earth in human form, was African people. And for a long time, there was nothing else but us. So is there any wonder why we feel that special connectedness? I also want to give honor and praise to our positive African ancestors, and especially those who put their life on the line or gave their lives for us, shed their blood for us, and they are worthy of all praise and all honor and all respect. And there's so many of them, we couldn't call them by name in here tonight, but I will say, as I traditionally say, in the words of the last poets, and some of you know that quite well, and that is what? Blessed are those who struggle. Oppression is worse than the grave. It is better to live and die for a noble cause than to live and die a slave. So I want to, having given honor correctly and rightfully, I want to give thanks to the Brooklyn chapter of the Black African Holocaust Council. And my main man, all of the people who work with him, and especially my main man, Eric Muhammad. Eric Muhammad has such a good heart. He's truly one of the pure in heart. There's a text that says that David was a man after God's own heart. Even after all the mistakes that David made, and he certainly made a lot, but it was because of his heart that he was quick to repent for what he did, and he was quick to try to make restitution and to do that which was just. Eric Muhammad is definitely a man after God's own heart. His life is committed and dedicated to bringing forth knowledge and understanding that is useful to us as a people, not only survive, but to gain a victory and to win the war. And he keeps us ever aware of the fact that we are at war. You know, we don't like to think about that. We'd like to escape the reality that we're at war. And it is hard to live in constant warfare situation, but we are at war. And that does not mean that we shouldn't take time and be happy and balanced. When you see us working around here, you see us picking at each other like brothers hanging out on the corner. We show enough homies. But we are very serious about our work, where we take the time every chance we get to play a little. But there's a balance. Many times we want to play all the time. But there's a time to play, there's a time to work, there's a time to do it all. So I've always enjoyed being with this brother and in his presence. And we have so many wonderful, all of you in here are special people tonight. And there are those who are noted for that extra effort they have put forth in the movement. I can't call them all, but Barashango has to stand up because he's a living ancestor. I'm not embarrassing you or putting you on the spot, but you have to be given that honor and that respect. And I was always glad to see him. My man, one of the best, another good heart. You're talking about a good-hearted black man. This is one of them old Africans in heart and spirit. And he will literally give you the shirt off his back, and that's Roy Canton. You all know Roy Canton and his work here. Please stand up, Roy. Every time somebody get in trouble, the first person there with help is Roy Canton. The first person to say, let's help. And he was one of the founders of the Africans Helping Africans. And I was the one that got in trouble to get it. Roy said, hold it, we're going to do something about this. And of course, one of our great living Kandakis. Kandaki means queen mother of the ancient Kushite empire. Kandaki and warrior queens. Such a warrior, sometimes the brothers have to gather around her and hold her hand still because she slings the sword everywhere. She has a double two-edged sword, a big one, and she carries it tough. And it's also as much of a warrior as she is, and she is that kind of warrior because she's so full of love. She has an overwhelming abundance of love, mother love for her people. And any threat to her people ignites her and incenses her and sends her to war instantly. And that's Sister Zaire. Please stand up. The great river, Sister Zaire. So I'm just thankful to be able to stand before you in the midst of such greatness and to be able to walk the planet and breathe the same air that they breathe at the same time. So it's a great joy indeed. How y'all doing tonight? Thank you for your patience. You know, no matter how hard we try to do things on time, it always turns out to be African time. It ain't CB time, it's African time. And African time is, it don't happen till all the elements are there. That's how we deal with things. So obviously all the elements are there, and we're going to do it tonight. Before getting in the topic tonight, I want to mention several things that I have to mention to you just briefly. And one is, on this topic tonight, Giant Footsteps in the Sands of Time. It is actually a 12-hour course. Now, no, I'm not going to, don't leave me. I'm not going to try to do the whole 12 hours tonight. Actually, it's supposed to be done in 4-hour segments. I'm not going to try to do 4 hours tonight. I'm going to go as far as we can go with the slides that we do have and try to feel the spirit and feel you and know when it's time to stop. I don't want to wear you out there because, you know, we can go on ad infinitum, you know. We are trying to, us old warrior scholars are trying to get out as much information as we can because we don't know when they're going to call our number. So please take that under consideration. So don't they ever stop. You know, you see Dr. Clark sometimes, he'll sit down, and I have seen him doze with his head on the table. And the moment you call his name, he get up and start calling the names, dates, places, what happened, what went down, everything, and can do it for 3-4 hours. Sit down and fall right back to sleep. But that shows you what kind of dedication and commitment that is. I pray that I live that long to be able to do it that way. But I am honored to have been able to study with men like him and Dr. Ben and Dr. Scobie, who recently crossed over to the ancestors, and Dr. Lord Mackey and others. It's just been a wonderful experience to be able to come in contact with these kinds of people. No, he didn't cross over. He's with us. Dr. Scobie crossed over a little while ago. No, Dr. Mackey's still here. And still here messing with everybody, I'm sure. You know, and that's how he shows you he loves you. If he don't mess with you, he don't care nothing about you. So, if he's messing with you, then you're all right. The topic that we're covering tonight, we're going to try to cover from 15 million years before the present, and we'll try to get to the Kushite Empire. I don't know if we'll make it that far, but I know we'll get pretty far. You can find it in the tapes. Much of the material I'm dealing with tonight is in the tapes. Portrait of the Eternal People, which covers the history of African people from 2 million years ago up until 1492, quoting from many of the African-centered warrior scholars there. I will be doing a lot of reference, as you well know. One of my favorite topics, and my wife can tell you that, is the black woman. I am a worshiper of the black woman and her powers, the special power that she possesses, and I love to tap into that power. That's the power. And on that tape, Black Woman, Queen, Mother of the Universe, you will find much of the material that I'm dealing with here tonight. From the anthropological, that is the study of ancient man point of view, called the scientific point of view, the theory of evolution, you will find on the tape the African origin of the human race. And from the biblical, or the theory of creationism, the biblical frame of reference, you will find on the tape, in the beginning was the black race, where I give an African-centered overview of the Genesis story. Also, there are others. I have 4 new tapes out now. One is the life and times of a black revolutionary called Jesus, how to find the true history of the black man in the Bible, and the word man is used generically, sisters, there. We didn't leave out the sisters. That's a generic term there, as you know me. The African Origin of the Bible, Volume 1, and the great African warriors in the Bible. You always talk about that turn the other cheek stuff, but you need to go back in the Bible and check the violence out in there. It's more violent than, what's that, Star Wars. And in Star Wars, none of them got anything on that Old Testament back there. So, and in the New Testament too, You'll be surprised at some of the instruction that Jesus gave his disciples in terms of self-defense. So you will find that in there. So, brothers and sisters, having said that, and also I want to thank you for every time that you purchase one of our tapes or one of our books, because it is only that way that we're able to carry this work on. That is the only way that it's financed, and we really appreciate it. Every time you spend money on this kind of material, it goes a long ways. Actually, you're not spending money, you're investing money, because it does go a long ways. And you know, I don't have to tell you how African-centered scholars have to struggle along, and Negroes with the money don't come to their support. But we're not going to cry that song anymore. We really don't need them. All we need is the people. And as long as we serve the people in turn will bless us. So you know I have my special signing pen with me tonight, the one that has been blessed by a Yoruba priest and a Khan priestess and an African-centered Christian minister. African-centered Christian minister and an African-centered Muslim and African-centered Buddhist. And then I took it out in the woods by the water with the squirrels and the birds and prayed over to make sure that it was covered. So it's a powerful pen, and I'm signing all tapes tonight when you come to the table. So I look forward to seeing you there. Let's get on into the topic. Now, what I was going to try to do is to do some reading as I go along with this, but we don't have any light for me here, so I'm going to have to work from the top of my head. So I'm going to be tested tonight. I didn't know I was going to be tested. I'm going to find out if I really know something up in here tonight as we go to say, you've been hearing about this. Let's see if Ishakamusa really knows something and if he knows what he's talking about. So some of my references I hope I'll be able to look at, but if not, I will quote them to you and we will go from there. Let us begin. Are you ready? Camera, lights, action. We have to put out all the lights. Now, who's going to operate? You're going to operate. All right, BrotherRonn, he's doing two things at one time. That's a bad brother there. We will begin with our first exhibit, but first we have to turn out all lights so that we can get a clear picture here. And this exhibit is entitled, Behold, the Only Thing Greater Than Yourself. Now, we are familiar with this, and we know it comes from the mini-series Roots. But I thought it was very apropos to use in this introduction to Giant Footsteps in the Sands of Time, because I believe that the one thing that African people, among many, must understand, that there is no human on this earth greater than you. What did I say? No human. I don't care what they know. I don't care what their position is. I don't care what kind of power they have. I don't care what they possess. There is none greater than you. There is only one thing greater than yourself, and that is the creative force and energy in the universe. And in essence, its greatness is a part of you because it's born in every one of us. We are a part of and an extension of the whole entire universe. And when we see ourselves in the context of being a part of the total whole, then we realize that we are limitless in the power that we can possess, even as individuals. In our very brains itself, in our very minds, the brain mechanism consists of 10 to 20 billion brain cells. I want you to just say that a minute. How many? 10 to 20 billion. Billion. That's a whole lot. It's hard for some of us to imagine what a billion is like. But 10 to 20 billion brain cells is what we have. Each one of those brain cells is capable of receiving knowledge, recording knowledge, storing knowledge, recalling knowledge, and transmitting knowledge. That's a powerful, powerful thing. Well, Brother Shaka, why are you making a big deal about this? White folks have this too, not in the way that Africans have it. How can I say that? I know you're going to get upset with me saying you're being racist. They lack that element, that magic elixir, which we'll be talking about later, that magic elixir known as what? Which is the regulating form of the thought power. No people since us have been able to accomplish what our people accomplished in the ancient world. The world has been in limbo. In spite of the computer age, in spite of all of that, none of it has ever been able to duplicate the technology that was in harmony with nature created by the ancient African. So the ancient African possessed something and still possesses something once we are released. And the first step to that release is a spiritual release. Then we can bring about the physical release. And in getting that spiritual release, we must realize there is only one thing greater than yourself. That is your Creator that created you, and to get directly in touch with that Creator. To get in touch with that creative force within you. For the power and divine energy that created everything is born in each and every one of us that comes to this earth. And Africans have it in a very special and unique way. Because, as we will find out, Africans were the first here, therefore they have a special and unique relationship with the Creator. You may want to question me or remark on that later. Let's move on to the next exhibit, please. This exhibit is entitled, I have some nice names for these things, but let's see if I can see them. Mother Africa, the heartbeat of planet Earth. Now, when you look on any map, you can see that Europe fits down to Mother Alkebulan, which is the oldest name we have for what is misnomer Africa. We see that Arabia fits it. When we look over at the American continent, as it is called, we see it fits around here. We see that all of the landmass was once joined together. About 250 million years ago, it was all together. And at the heart and center of it was what was to become, and is still now, the richest mineral continent on Earth. It not only had the richest minerals, but it also had enough food to sustain the whole entire world before invaders came and redirected the energies and caused deserts and other things to well up there, and swamps and things of that nature. We had a true paradise there. And that in that paradise is where humanity began. Before the Creator brought about humanity, it was made certain that what would be needed to sustain everybody on the planet that would be born on this planet would be found in Mother Africa. And as long as Mother Africa was undisturbed by demonic forces, she was able to do that in her, and we find that in her ancient history there. The heartbeat. Now, there are two theories about the development of humanity, and both of them, as Joel A. Rogers tells us, both science and the Bible agree that man began in the tropics. And he also goes on to say that tropical man, oh, please don't close that. I need that light. Oh, yeah, and you can open the other one too, because I need that light, please. And the air, we all need. Now, that tropical man is never white. He's always black, brown, frizzly hair, broad nose, protruding jaws, particular Africoid, the beautiful Africoid features. Yes, good, that helps a lot there. The theory, there are two theories, basic theories about the origin of humanity. One is called the theory of creationism. That's the one we're most familiar with. What is the theory of creationism? The theory of creationism says that human beings were either made by the voice of, or the hand of, or some direct creative mechanism of a divine deity. Call it God, the Creator, whatever you wish. But there are many stories. You can find it in the Quran, you can find it in the Bible, you can find it in many of the ancient books. There's so many stories of the Creator directly creating human beings at a given moment and time in space, on this earth. That's called the theory of creationism. The one most known to us is in the book of Genesis, or the stories most known to us, because in the book of Genesis, there's two different stories in there, at least. Now, which I go over in that tape in the beginning, was the black race. Now, the other theory, and I'm calling it a theory. Please do not get upset with me. I'm speaking as a scientist tonight, not as a theologian. I'm calling it a theory because it's based on belief. And belief is not something you can prove. In fact, I don't even debate it with anybody, because it's personal. You have no concrete evidence for it other than that you believe it. All right, and that there's no basis to debate there. But it's a theory. The other theory, a theory is that which cannot be proven. But it sounds probable, it could possibly be, but you cannot completely prove it. It's not what is called natural science. Natural science is based on natural law, something that you can prove, that's concrete. The theory of evolution, that's a theory too. They keep calling it science, but it's not science. Even though you use deductive reasoning in dealing with it, you use a scientific methodology in dealing with it and measuring time and space of the artifacts and the bones that have been found, it is still theoretical in its content. The theory of evolution says that humanity began in a lower form and gradually moved up into the higher form of what we know as human beings today. So you have those two basic theories. And what Joel A. Rogers says is that they both agree on this. Although they have many points in which they disagree, they both agree that the first human beings came out of the tropics and were therefore, being indigenous to the tropics and being tropical, were black people. That's a reality there. Even when you go into the story of Adam, the word Adam is from Adumah, the Akkadian word which means mud man, or man of the black clay, man of the black dirt, the black soil, is exactly what the name means. The next exhibit, please. Y'all still with me? Yes. This one is called Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, Baby. This is an artist's conception of the theory of creationism, the story of Adam and Eve, which is actually a duplicate of the story of Hadama and Hava and Kulukulu and Kulukula out of the southern portion of Arkebu land, and a whole lot of other stories which I described in the book I did, African Genesis, Amazing Stories of Man's Beginnings. But the reason why I put this here is because we are not accustomed to thinking of, even in the theory of creationism, Adam and Eve as being Africans or Africoid or being in a tropical land. The very word Eden, Edenu, meaning pleasant place, and it talks about in the 2nd chapter of the book of Genesis that there was a great river, and that 4 rivers ran out of that river, and one of those rivers was called the River Gihon, which was the Hebrew for saying the Nile or Happy River. And that one was the Indus River, and that then the other was the Euphrates and the Tigris River, and which shows, again, it illustrates that even in the Genesis record, it's mentioning a time when all of the earth's landmass was once joined together. So here we put them with tropical animals and beautiful Africoid and tropical features there. As a matter of fact, when I was in the seminary, they said that Adam was about 13 to 15 feet tall, and Eve was about 11 to 13 feet tall. So they were some big, beautiful people there. Now let's go to the next one. And this is called a fine, healthy hunk of a man. What is this? Somebody at first looking at it will say, oh, well, that looks like an ape to me. Well, this kind of individual, this kind of person, as it was, existed between 14 million and 10 million years before the present. What happened was this. There was about 25 million years ago, the mother continent, the center of the earth, Arkebu land, began to drift north, and it hit with the European continent. And when it hit, the continents are constantly shifting. That is called the shifting of tectonic plates, tectonic plate action. It's constantly going on. The earth is in motion always. Every year, about an inch or so of each continent moves in a particular direction. One day, millions of years from now, it will probably all join together again. But the continent of Arkebu land, Misnamet Africa, drifted north, and when it bumped with Europe, it caused a change in the climatic conditions. At the time, there was a great belt of forest all around the earth. And we have been able to find evidence of that in archaeology and digging up things. There was a whole belt of forest covering the globe. And therefore, there was a great proliferation of what is called anthropoids. An anthropoid is a man-like ape, very close to human beings. very close in characteristics to humans. Now, don't get upset with that. Do you know that 97% of the genetic makeup of a chimpanzee is the same as yours and mine? And that 95% of the genetic makeup of a gorilla is the same as yours and mine? No wonder our children act like park apes sometimes. And I've always identified with Brother Gorilla. I think he's one of the finest and the noblest creatures there is. Now, even in dealing with the theory of evolution, which we will be dealing with quite a bit here, you've heard me talk on the theory of creationism or the biblical aspect of it, and certainly I cover it in many of the tapes. Today we're going to approach what they call the scientific aspect, the theory of evolution. Don't be afraid to approach it. You don't have to believe in it, you don't have to accept it. But at least in approaching it, you can approach it from an African-centered frame of reference. And then you can take the material and do what you want with it once you get it. But there are many topics that black people are afraid to deal with, that white people deal with all the time and bounce back and forth. And especially, I'm writing the book now, The Real Jesus Was a Black Man, and bringing up some realities about the contradictions in the New Testament that black theologians are scared to death to deal with. White theologians discuss it all the time. So we have a right to discuss this subject and to approach it from an African-centered frame of reference. And we're going to deal with it. Now, when that happened, there were about 35 to 40 different species of anthropoids. But when that climatic shift took place and the continent began to drift south again, much of the forest belt dried up. And it was now put in what was called the heartland of Africa, in the center of Africa and around the equator there. So the anthropoid population began to die out. And there was only a few left. And out of the ones that were left, most all of them at that time were what was called arboreal creatures. What is arboreal creatures? Those who live in trees, those who move back and forth in trees. And they stayed primarily in the trees because you had these big old rhinoceri and saber-toothed lions and tigers that existed at that time that were very dangerous to these creatures. But in those trees, as the forest began to shrink up, they had problems. They had what was called overpopulation problems. They began to fight for space. They began to fight for food. And out of all of the anthropoids, there was one particular anthropoid that got tired of the struggle and decided to venture out of the forest and go out into the savannas or the high grass of Africa. Now, this was a very dangerous move. It was very hazardous there, but he had to make a living. And he would go out in the savannas, get him some food, and all those other animals and things would be chasing him, and he'd run back in the forest. After a while, as he did this, it was very difficult on all fours to do this because he had to try to carry his food. Sometime between 10 million and 4 million years before the present, he began to walk. He began to become what is called bipedal. That is, walk with 2 feet. So he could fight with these 2 hands with a stick if he needed to and carry his food back. So this creature, who was about, he weighed about 30, 40 pounds, about 3.5 feet high, was a very strong and very robust creature. He was the first step, according to in the study of anthropology, and it's Paleoanthropology, that's ancient study, a study of ancient man. He was the first creature then that began to give life to what would be known as the human species. He is called a proto-hominid. Hominid is a term which means that, which includes within it man, which we are, human beings now, and apes related to human beings, human-like apes. They are in that family. That is called a hominid. He was a proto-hominid. He was the stage just before the group of hominids that began to develop into what would be called human beings. Y'all still with me? Yeah. All right, now some of these terms might, if they don't stick with you, I got them on the tape, and I want you to, we feel, African-centered scholars believe that everybody should have knowledge. That you don't necessarily have to go to a college campus to get knowledge. You don't want to. Some of us didn't have the advantage of doing that, and some of us did. And those of us who did have to bring it back to those who didn't. but that you have the right to entertain this knowledge and to sort this knowledge out. Don't let these terminologies that they come up with disturb you. I would do everything that I can to make those terminologies living and real to us. So we owe a lot to this brother. Once he got up on his 2 feet and started walking, he never looked back. He kept on progressing until we became human beings. So we owe a lot to him, and we call him Kenya Pathecus, which I will deal with in a moment. Next exhibit, please. This is called a 15-million-year-old dental plate. What is it? It's a dental plate that was found among many of the findings by the LSB Leakey team there in Kenya as they were searching for fossils, old bones. As they were digging around in there, they found many apes and anthropoids that had been extinct. But they came across this one, and you're going to maybe surprised to find out who really found it, who really discovered it or rediscovered it, because nothing is being discovered, it's being rediscovered. Well, what is so unusual about this dental plate? The thing that helped them to realize that this was not an ordinary ape or anthropoid, but this was a being that was in a further stage than the ape or anthropoid, was this here called the canine fossa, this indentation in the jaw. What is that indentation in the jaw? That is the place in the jaw that houses the muscles that are necessary for speech. So this creature either could speak or had the capacity or potential for speaking, as Dr. Leakey announced before the conference in 1960. And he's 15 million years old. This is the first evidence that we have of something that is what they keep calling the missing link between us and our brother and sister anthropoids. Next exhibit, please. This is the man who found him, Hilson McCurry. They keep talking about all these white folks that are paleoanthropologists, and they get the degrees and they write the papers on it and they go to the press conferences. But the folk who be finding these bones is the Africans. Be finding these bones. Hilson McCurry found this on Lake Turkana on Wicker's Farm, is what it was called. Oh, good Lord, what's that? Fort. I can't see it here now, but he found this and brought it to the Leakeys, and from there they took it on and presented it to the rest of the world. Now the one that he found dates about, they use a method of dating that is called the potassium argon 40 method. Among the many methods, you've heard of the carbon 14 method, many of you, because here in this area, you all probably are the most learned Africans on earth, because you're exposed to, there seems to be the highest concentration of African-centered scholars in the world seem to be here in this area. And that might be one of the reasons why y'all so busy. You're busier than a bushel of roaches. You're always doing something up here, always involved. And the greatest support that we've had here in the United States for Mumia has come out of here. These are busy folk here. These are some busy Africans. They don't be messing around. They got something going on. They're doing something all the time. And that is because they're the most well-fed intellectually. Oh, thank you, brother. They're the most well-fed intellectually. And so I know you are aware of the carbon 14 method. Well, this is called it can only go back about 70,000 years. And I like to deal with all these years here because I want you to know our history is the longest history on earth. It goes way back. It don't start in 1619 when we start making contributions to America or anywhere else. It begins in the motherland where there was nobody there but us and the Creator and Mother Nature, or the Creator and Mother Nature and us. And this one is dated by that method. Now, what is the potassium argon 40 method? Wherever they find these bones, they usually find it around some type of volcanic ash, especially in that area there in East Akebu land. And when you take the ash, the volcanic ash, and you put it in this machine and you heat it to a certain temperature, the way that the ash, the argon gas that comes out of the potassium in the ash is transmitted into argon gas, the rate at which it is transmitted into argon gas gives you some idea of how old that thing is you found in that volcanic ash, somewhere between 100 or 200,000 years, give or take a few there. It will bring you within that vicinity of it. So that's the method they use for dating things that brings us to millions of years old. This one was dated about between 14 million and 15 million. Now there was one that was found before that in the Siwalik Hills in India that was dated about 7 million BP, and it was found by one Edward Lewis, who was a student at Yale there in India doing research work in paleoanthropology, and he found a jawbone, the same type of jawbone, in India in 1932. But when he presented it to the Society of the Scientists there, they only wanted to accept bones that had been found in Europe. Or they might accept those found in China, but they didn't want to accept those found in a land where the people indigenous to that land had been black. And where he found it, the people were at that time still indigenous to that land were black, in the Siwalik Hills of India. Sometime later in 1960, about the same time that Hilson McCurry made his rediscovery, one Edwin Simmons and David Pilbeam rekindled the interest in this by finding this jawbone that had been left by Edward Lewis in a laboratory, and they brought that specimen before the world. The one that Hilson McCurry found was found in Wicker's Farm in Fort Turner, Kenya. Next exhibit, please. This one is called a 3.7 million year old footprints, a giant footstep on the road to humanity. What is it? It is the footprints of two individuals, 3.7 million years old. Where is it? It was found in hardened volcanic ash at Lake Latoli in Tanzania. Where is Tanzania? You sure? Yeah, I just want to make sure now. And it was found by a member of Dr. Mary Leakey's team, who was the wife of Louis B. Leakey, who was an outstanding paleoanthropologist whom the National Geographic Society didn't want to really recognize his findings in the motherland for a long time. But finally, they had to, because the evidence was so overwhelming. But who really found it? Who was the member of the Leakey team who found it? It was an indigenous African named Ndibo, N-D-I-B-O. And while he was moving around, he uncovered in the ground doing his anthropological work. As he was digging in the ground, he came across two beautiful human-like footprints, which encouraged the team to search for more, and they found a 77-foot track of these footprints that were not animal footprints, but very, very human. And this gives us the second part of the title of our series here, Giant Footsteps in the Sands of Time. Even though these people were not giants, they were maybe 4 to 4.5 feet tall at that time, it was a giant quantum leap for humanity because it brought into being another genus. Now, let's deal with the word genus a minute. The term genus means in the family of. Now, we had one genus we've been talking about called Kenyanopithecus, or Kenyapithecus. Now, when they first found the jawbone in India that was dated at 7 million BP, they called it Ramapithecus, or Ramapithecus, after a great hero of India, a black man whose wife had been taken, captured into captivity by the invading Aryans, and he organized an army of gorillas, of apes, and went and got his wife with an army of apes. So you see why they named it Ramapithecus. And it's talked about in the great heroic, which is sacred literature. It's a Bible. It's sacred literature. The Ramayana is what it is called in India. Now, they called it Ramapithecus, and that's what they called that kind of any bones or any structure related to that. They called it Ramapithecus. Why did I name it Kenyapithecus? Because even though the first one was found in India, 7 million BP, the one that is the oldest was found where? In Kenya, 15 million BP. So the one that's 15 million years old, I think, is the elder. It's called it, being an African, and being an African tradition, we record what? Respect to our elders. Right. When you see Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark enter a room, you will never see Dr. Ben enter that room until Dr. Clark has entered that room. Because Dr. Clark is the elder to Dr. Ben. You will never see me enter the room without their permission unless I'm helping them before they do. Because they are what? My elders. Right. You see. So Kenyapithecus, I think, is a good name, and of course, as a scientist, I think I have a right to. White folks be naming everything. I think we, as Africans, we're talking about my ancestor. Right. So I call it Kenyapithecus, Kenya ape, as it's called, or man-like ape. A proto-hominid. That was one genus. We don't know any species in there. Yeah, you have a genus. And then the genus is broken down into different species. That is what? Different types of that same genus in the family of. All right, now. But when we come to this next one that we're talking about here, the 3.7 million years, somewhere around 4 million years ago, there develops another group that is moving towards humanity, and they are actual hominids. And hominids is what? What is hominids? Are humans in the hominid? Are humans hominids? Right. Right, it includes humans and anthropoids. Humans and apes that favor human beings. They are in that family. Now, an orangutan wouldn't fit in that family. Only the chimpanzees, the gorillas, those who and actually they don't fit into the hominid family because they did not develop towards humanity, even though they're very close to us in genetic structure. It was that one proto-hominid of that one genus, Kenyapithecus, that developed later on into the 4 or 5 billion humans that you have on the planet today. And he gave life at some time around 4 million years before the present to this group called Enzaniapithecines. Now, white folks called them, the first ones they found dated about 2 million years ago, and they found them in southern Akibo-land, which they call South Africa. Dr. Raymond Dart found it when they were blowing open some mines there. I think it was a lime mine. They were blowing up a mine, and a skull shot out of the air from 2 million years ago. A skull shot past them, said, "Here I am. Deal with me." Right. Blood skull, this shot had been resting for 2 million years. Said, "I'm tired of you crackers now." Bam, shot through the air. Deal with this. So when they studied it, they found out that it was definitely in the line of the development of human beings, that it was not no ape or anything. You could tell from its structure of the bone structure of the skull. And he called it Australopithecus. Now that gives you the idea that it came from Australia. Australo meaning southern. I ain't going for that. It was found in what is misnomer South Africa, which the people call Enzania. So I name it Enzaniapithecine. Again, I take the liberty as a new African scientist to name my ancestors. Enzaniapithecine is what it is. Well, this Enzaniapithecine is a new genus now, different from the Kenyapithecines, a new type of being. And it has 5 species, 5 different types of it. It has one that is called Enzaniapithecine afarensis. I'm going to deal with each one of these. One is called robustus. And hold on, let me make sure. Should know this by heart by now, as often as we've dealt with it. One is called robustus, africanus, and the other is called, it'll come to me in a minute. All right, give me a minute. But there's 4 different species of them. And I got to think of the location where it was found. Well, just give me a minute, I'll get to it. But you have 4 different types of this genus. The one that gave life to the robustus, which was real big and robust, and to the africanus, which was found further south, is the one that lived in the area now known as Tanzania, Kenya, and Ethiopia, in what is called the Hadar Triangle there. And it's in the Afar region. And the reason why it's called Afarensis is because the people who were finding the bones was not the white people there, it was these Afar tribesmen who could ride on their horse and shoot the tail off a mosquito with their rifle at 100 yards while riding their horse. They had such keen eyesight. And they were the ones finding these bones and bringing them to the white man. The white man bone crazy. We make some money with the bones. So they bring in the bones there. So they were the ones that had the sharp eyes to be finding them. So they called that species Afarensis. That's the oldest of the Enzaniopithecines, and it gave life to the others who came after it. All right. Let's move to the next exhibit. This is called Walking in the Shadow of Human Antiquity. Now, this is an artist's conception that was found in the National Geographics. And what it is showing, you can see the shadow of these beings here. And it's showing the volcanic ash. Because what had happened is these people had walked in this ash, left their footprints, rain came, and the sun came and hardened it in the process, and then another spewing of the volcano came a few months later and covered it, and eventually it was covered by even thicker layers until finally it just stayed under there and it became petrified. Stayed there for 3.7 million years. The Creator must have known we would need to find out about those footprints in this day and time. There would be some doubts about the longevity and the authenticity of the fact that Africans are the oldest people on this earth. And when the time was right, it was revealed to the world. Also was elephant footprints and footprints of other animals found there as well. Next exhibit, please. This exhibit is called An Afternoon Stroll in the Volcanic Ash. Now, why did the artist draw it this way? Because the footprints that are in front have a larger than the ones in back. And the Enzaniopithecines, the male was a little larger than the female, as in many species, because the male is the first line defense of a given species. So they're given a little more bulk and a little more brawn. Now, that doesn't mean we're more important than the female, not in any sense of the word. It just means we are supposed to be better equipped to do our basic job, which is defend the women and children in any given community and in any given species. And they figured there was a child on her hip because one of the footprints sunk deeper of hers of the heel than the other, which meant that she was carrying something, probably a child. And we see him walking with his stick to take care of business if something happened while they taking their afternoon stroll in the volcanic ash. Next exhibit. This one is called Gotta Dig Deep Just to Make Myself a Living. All right. Now the Enzaniopithecines, no, wait a minute, something's off here. Something's off. Oh, all right, no. This one is called Sweet Little Miss Lucy May from down Ethiopia way. That's what that is. That's an artist's reconstruction of an Afarensis species of the Enzaniopithecine genus. Now, that's what Dr. Donald Johansen and Dr. Tim White, who were that summer, I think that was in the year 1974, yes it is. In the year 1974, they were working on their doctorates in the field of paleoanthropology. When white boys want to get their doctorates and get something new, where do they go? What did Napoleon say? Always what? Something new comes out of Africa. If you want something new, you got to go to the place that created everything, where everything comes out of. So that's where they would go to get their degrees. Since Dr. Leakey started this, it became a fad. Right. But when they would get there, it was the Africans that would do the finding. Right. And one day, one of the Afar tribesmen came to them with this bone that was a part of an elbow. And they recognized it as a part of an elbow, and so they went digging some more. The Africans doing the digging now. They go digging some more, and while they're digging, they get a structure of about 40% of the body intact. They are so happy that night that they have a beer party, because they had been told by their funding source that they were not going to get any more money if they didn't find something. So they were so happy to find something so that they could come back the next year so they would have something to write their doctoral dissertation on, right? So that night they had a party, and they're drinking this beer and probably smoking some drugs, some wavy too. And they're listening to a song by the Beatles called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which was definitely a drug-inspired piece. And while they're high, that's when they decide to name it Lucy. But the Afar tribesmen said, no, ain't no Lucy here. This is Dinkesh. They say, what? Yeah, this is Dinkesh. What is that? It means you are wonderful. So the proper name, you keep hearing about Lucy and Lucy. This is Dinkesh, 3.5 million years old. Dinkesh, the bones that they found. What they do, they can restructure the face and everything from just the study of the bones. They can reconstruct that for you. You still with me? Yeah. Are you bored? No. You're so quiet up in here. They're getting too cold. It is the most famous and complete fossil of the genus Enzania Pithecines. There have also been rediscovered 13 other hominids of this same species and genus, and they were found in the same area dating between 3.5 to 3.7 million years old, and they were called the first family. Also in other parts of East Akebu land, they have found 35 to 60 individuals also who fit into this genus and this species. Now we come to the next one, which is gotta dig deep just to make myself a living. These are Enzania Pithecines out foraging. Now, the economy, they were a collective people. They worked collectively. They worked how? They couldn't survive any other way. All the animals around them were much larger than them. As a matter of fact, had they not used the system of collectivism, there would be no human beings on the earth today, because the other animals would have wiped them out. We've found evidence of them with holes in their skull that from leopards. Leopards would snatch one, go up in a tree and eat it. You know, so that's how it was back then. So the only way they could survive was through a collective effort. Right. That's how they kept. And the other thing that makes this genus and this species so important, probably one of the most singular important development of hominids, was the Enzania Pithecine. Why? Because at the time that the Enzania Pithecine was on the plains of Africa, the sun was getting hotter and hotter, and with all the hair that the Kenya Pithecine had, they couldn't keep that and be running all over the place too. Running from animals, chasing food, fighting to defend themselves, carrying food that worked up what? The sweat glands. So it got hot up under all that hair. So they had to shed the hair. But in the shedding of the hair, they were already, obviously, a dark-skinned group, but they became darker. Why did they become darker? To protect them against the ultraviolet rays of the sun and to begin to receive it as nourishment instead of the damage that it can do to your skin if you do not have a certain magic ingredient or enough of that magic ingredient, which is melanin. The melanin increased in them. And it is because of that reason that humans live on the planet today. There would be no humans here if there had not been a melanin increase in the Enzania Pithecine. None. We don't owe white folks stupid shit. Nothing. Nothing. Well, and 20% meat. Okay. 20% hunter. But it was the woman who kept the economy going. While the men did the hunting, the women took care of the foraging. At this time, they hadn't found it, as far as we know, the science of agriculture, which was founded by a woman, which we'll talk about as we go on. All right. Let's go to the next exhibit. This is what is called a 3-million-year-old picnic. They having a picnic out there. They having a ball out there. They done come across some berries and some nuts and things, and they chowing down. Now this species called the afarensis, in fact the whole Anzaniopithecine genus, lived between 4 million and 1.5 million years before the present. And they seem to have been very, in fact they were communal. They lived together in small bands. During the 2.5 million year period of their existence, they progressively shed their body hair in order to adapt to intense heat of the sun. And that's what we just talked about, thereby saving all future hominids and making a way for future humanity. Next exhibit. 2 million years ago at the Grand Canyon of East Africa. Now, what is this? We come to a new genus now. This is what it used to look like in what is called the Olduvai Gorge. How many in here have been there? Because you all are so well traveled. So you have seen this, Baba. You've seen the animals there probably that resemble these now. Now, in the old, they were much bigger then. And back over in here, let me find it. Oh, there they are, is a small group. They're keeping their distance from these animals. There's a small group of the next genus. We've talked about the Kenyaopithecus. We've talked about the Anzaniopithecines. Now we're talking about a new genus. And that new genus is called homo, which means man, Greek for man. Homo. It's now come from part ape, part man to man. And this one is called the Homo Habilis, handyman, because we have found in the Olduvai Gorge and stretching all around in that area, they have found stone tools made by them called the Olduvai culture, highly developed tools. They were very progressive in their move. They were also bone crushers there. They would take their clubs and beat animals in the head with them when they was going in search of food. Not needlessly, only when they were hungry. The first of the Homo genus was found in 1960 by Mary and L.S.B. Leakey, and they dated it about 2 million years ago. Here in this now dry and barren gorge is where some of the richest treasures of hominids are found, where they found so many of the bones of our ancestors. Next exhibit. This one is called, Hey Brothers, It's Time to Break Camp and Give These Big Bad Dudes Some Space. We're still in the genus Homo, of which we are a part of, the genus Homo. But the genus Homo was the Homo habilis, which lived about 2 million years ago, and then another one developed about 1.6 million years ago called the Homo erectus. Why was he called erectus? He stood straight up. The Anzaniopithecine walked something like this, the way I walk when I get tired. My wife laughs at me because when you're carrying something, I found it to be very effective. When you got a bag in this hand, a bag in that hand, to walk like that, it's easy to carry. So them brothers knew what they were doing back there. The Kenyaopithecus walked like that, and the Anzaniopithecine walked like that. And the Homo habilis up a little more, but with that hump in the back, which they say I get when I get very tired or upset. So you can see how I'm related to Brother Ape. I don't mind that. You know, I find, a noble creature. Then there comes one, Homo erectus is walking straight up. He's not leaning forward at all. He's walking straight up, and we can tell that he walks straight up through the study of, the magnum, what is that now? The anatomical term. It'll come to me in a minute, y'all. Please forgive me. The old man is forgetting some things here tonight. But you can tell from the way that the base of the skull, where the spine goes up in, from the way that's situated, you can tell that the spine goes straight up and it's not leaning forward. And it's called the magnum something. And hopefully I'll remember as we go on. Now, what was so special about these cats? Well, for one thing, they lived between 1.6 million years ago to 200,000 years ago. They were highly efficient hunters. They would surround the animals. They even probably had language. They had some type of language of communication because they found in Spain, dating about 500,000 years ago, where these cats were bagging mammoth elephants in bogs. These little dudes were taking down elephants, would use brush fires to drive them into the bogs and then come down on them with their axes and their spears and then take the meat home and feed their families. They also were the first to build houses. The first fire that we know of was that was used for cooking and for heating was first created in Mother Akebu land about 1.4 million years ago. And we find the evidence for that in Ivan Van Sertima's Journal of African Civilization, the one entitled Blacks in Science, Ancient and Modern Times. You find that on page 5 there. So they were the first to cook food and build houses. So this was a great advance for the hominid in the development of the hominids that was to become a full-fledged human being. Homo erectus. Next exhibit, please. Does anybody know this brother? This man, don't forget this man's name. This is a very important African, very outstanding African. So outstanding that even though white folks didn't want to, they had to give him the recognition he was due. But who cares what they gave him? The most important thing is that we recognize him for what he is. His name is Kamoya Camille. Who is he? He is a archaeologist, a paleoanthropologist in Kenya. He also, for many years now, has been the head of the National Museum in Kenya there. And he is the most successful finder of hominids in the world. Nobody has found more bones of our ancestors than this man. Harvard, Chicago, anthropology schools, Pennsylvania, all the people they've sent out, none of them with all their degrees have found what this man has found. And we'll tell you why in a minute. Him and Bernard Engineer worked together and found at Lake Turkana in the year 1984 one of the oldest known specimens of the Homo erectus and the most complete of it, dating 1.6 million years. That's where we get the date for it. We'll be talking about that some more as we go. Let's go to the next exhibit. This one is called Black Hand Communicating with the Ancestral Bones. Now, the National Geographics and other groups, white scientists, said, Mr. Camille, you know, when white folks want something, they can be very respectful. Other than that, you boy. When they want something out of you, they can be very nice. They can call you by all your titles. Hey, brother, say, tell us, sir, how is it, of all of the people we have sent out into the field, you find more bones than anybody else has found? How can you do this? I mean, these men are trained in anatomy. They're trained in geology. They're trained in archaeology. They're trained in so many things. How do you do it? And Brother Kamoya just simply responded by saying, well, the bones speak to me. They said, what? They said, the bones speak to me. See, white folks cannot understand anything that they can't deduce. You know, that they can't touch or feel. They can't understand it. So what do you mean the bones speak to you? They say, my ancestors speak to me and tell me where to find them. I said, well, what language do they speak? He said, they speak to me in Kikeswa. So they went back to the lexicons and they went and cross-referenced it with Swahili and all the other languages, the Kikuyu and every language they could. They came back, they said, Mr. Camille, there is no Kikeswa. He said, oh no, it's not in them books. It's not in there. It's an ancestral language that they speak. So they left him alone. They just say, okay, this nigga's crazy. They let him be. Next exhibit. A fine young man from way back in the day, as the young folks like to say, back in the day. Now this specimen is classified as number KNM-WT 15,000. That is the Kenya National Museum. 15,000 fallen in West Turkana Lake. And it is the most famous Homo erectus fossil skeleton to date. It is a young boy, about 12 years of age. That's the one that Kamoyo Camille and Brother Engeneo found together there. That's one of the ones that spoke to him in the language of Kikiswa. Its skull was found on the west bank of Lake Turkana, Kenya, by Brother Camille, and the other 70 pieces were excavated by Bernard Engeneo and the Richard Leakey team. Next exhibit. This is entitled A Tribute Long Overdue. Are you all right? Are you tired yet? You still there? Okay. In October 1985, I want to read this for you. The National Geographic Society awarded the coveted Lagorsi Medal to Kamoya Camille for, quotation marks, outstanding accomplishments in geographic exploration in the sciences and public service to advance international understanding. This medal has been bestowed only 7 times in the history of the society, the National Geographic Society, up until 1985. And he was appointed curator of the prehistoric sites for the National Museum of Kenya and has served in that post since 1977. The man's work was so outstanding that the National Geographic had to give him an award that they have only given 7 times in the history of the whole National Geographic things there. That's one of the things, not that that's so important to me, right, but I'm saying when your stuff is so bad that your natural enemy got to turn around and recognize you. You kicking it. You sure enough kicking it. So he is somebody to always remember and be proud of. And he still, is he, when you were there at the Alderway Gorge, did you go to the Kenya Museum, sir?
Yes, we did.
Was he still there?
No, I don't remember him being there.
Oh, all right. So he may have since, I hope he's still with us on the planet, but I haven't kept up with that. So next exhibit, please. This one is called the 200,000, no, wait, I'm messing up again. This is called an astonishing revelation. Okay. What is the astonishing revelation? Note the title in Newsweek of January 11th, 1988, and what does it say? It's the search for Adam and Eve. Right. But you know how slick the enemy is. They didn't have no Jerry curls then. He's going to have them hooked up with Jerry curls, see, here. And of course, you got the snake and all that. You're talking about a scientific finding, but they're couching it in mythological language. Right. And they're calling it the search for Adam and Eve. It was in the Newsweek article, and it's an artist's conception, as you can well see. There was an article dealing with the origin of the human species. This was some startling information they found that took them for a loop. Prior to this, their method for finding how old humans was and how long they've been around and where they came from, they used a method called osteology. Osteology, osteo meaning what? Bones. The study of bones. So they studied bone structures. That were bone structures that had been found that were human or near human, and that's how they would come about it. But now they came up with another method of determining human beings and their development and their longevity, and this was called biogenetics. And we go to the next exhibit now. And this is called a 200,000-year-old mother of all living, here in the study of biogenetics. She is known as the mitochondrial mother. We'll deal with that word mitochondrial in a minute. Now what happened here? Rebecca Kahn, Dr. Rebecca Kahn, some other scientists at Emory University, the University of Hawaii, and a couple of others came together and studied the placenta of 147 women from Asia, from Africa, and from different places. In the study of the placenta, the afterbirth, and the study from the DNA in there, and tracing that down, they ended up in their search to a group of women who lived in sub-Saharan Africa, dating about 200,000 years ago, making them therefore the mothers of all creatures on this planet. Some of them I'm sure she wouldn't want to own today. But would nobody be here if it wasn't for that group of black women living 200,000 years ago in sub-Saharan Africa. And they call her the mitochondrial mother, or Eve, that was the code name they used. We'll deal with that term mitochondrial in a moment.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Yes, sir.
It might seem just ordinary question. Would you just explain sub-Saharan Africa, other than just Africa?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Sub-Saharan Africa is the definite. At one time, all of Akebu land was the land of the blacks.
Right.
Every time somebody would attack us, beginning about 6,000 years ago, whenever they would make attacks, as Dr. Chancellor Williams, peace be upon him, pointed out in the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, every time they would attack from the north. We also inhabited all of Asia at one time. When they would attack from the north, and all of Arabia. They would drive us to the south. Therefore, you look in Arabia today and you will find in the south the dark-skinned people. You look in India, you'll find in the south the dark people. You look anywhere in the world to the south, you find dark people, because they were driven there by constant invasions from whites, and they could not stand the incessant fighting. We would fight, but we didn't want to fight all the time. It seems the Caucasians could fight all the time. Right. They could be in constant warfare. We would therefore withdraw to try to avoid, just like the red man did. He said, well, let him have it. We'll take this territory over here, thinking he would stay there. You know, people get tired of fighting. Here's what Dr. Imari Obadeli calls a relentless animal. Right. He never stops. You can't stop him in the name of Jesus. You can't stop him in the name of Allah. You can't stop him in the name of Buddha. You can't stop him in the name of Moses. You can't stop him in the name of nothing. Right. Because it's his nature. So he kept driving people further south. So we ended up being in what was called the Sub-Sahara. That is below the desert. In fact, as a result of the constant ruination of the land brought on by his invasions and us having to use scorched the land tactics to keep them from having anything to eat when they were invading us, the land became depreciated. The land became drained. It at one time was a lush land. Up until about 5,000 years ago, it was all, that's where those oases come from. They're remnants of the lush land and the rivers, the underground rivers that run under the desert there. So Sub-Sahara, or what they call the Sudan, which means land of the black. So many words mean land of the black. So that's what Sub-Saharan Africa means. That's in the heartland of Africa. Down there in the deep where you can't pass for nothing. Where it's show enough the real thing. Right. Broad nose, thick lip, kanky hair, those beautiful Africoid features there. Now, the, what's the next one? It's called traveling the deoxyribonucleic highway. All right, don't get upset by the word. Deoxy. Let me read it again. Deoxyribonucleic. Deoxyribonucleic. That's what it is. My daughter, who studies this, had to help me with that word. Deoxyribonucleic acid is the acid that is found in is called mitochondrial DNA. It is found in that which can only be found in the mother. You can only trace it through the line of the mother. Now, the nucleus has the genes of both parents, but you find this in the DNA that is found in the cells of the mother, the mitochondrial DNA. Meaning coming through the line of the female, the mother. It can only be traced to the mother. That old statement, what's that? Mama's baby, father's maybe. That's what that is. And so it demonstrates to us that there was a common female ancestor for all human beings. As there was a common female ancestor, there must have been a common what? Male ancestor. And inasmuch as she was African, he must have been African, because back then black women had plenty of sense and they did not mess with anything but their own kind. As a matter of fact, Rebecca Kahn says in her article, and I write about that in my book, African Woman, the Original Guardian Angel, and it's also on the tape, Black Woman, Queen Mother of the Universe, that there were some other, some of the, at one point, that lived just about side by side with them, what is called the, Neanderthal species that were not quite fully developed. And whenever they would approach this species, she would turn them off, because there was no way they could get next to her. They had to be able to say more than ugh. to get over. You know, still with sister today, you got to have some rap. You can't just come out your mouth with anything. So they did not make with that. As a matter of fact, Rebecca Kahn says in her report that they had some special advantage over every other living tribe on the earth at that time as they traveled. They began to spread out around the world, as Dr. Diop says, about 140,000 or between 150,000 years ago, they began to spread out over the globe. And they carried with them, as this white scientist says, a special advantage over everything else that was in existence at the time. As you well know, the Neanderthal never fully developed into the modern human that we know. In fact, they died out somewhere around 35,000 years ago and was probably lost during the last glacial period there in Europe. Okay, now, although the Neanderthal, you had them in Africa, you had them in Asia. In Asia, they were a brownish color. In Africa, they were dark, they were black. And in Europe, they had a reddish color, but they were not white. No white people were in existence at this time on Earth. Now, we've been talking about the development of towards humanity, what? Ever since what? What period did we start at? What years? When we went to Kenya-Pathecus. How long ago was that? 15 million. 14 or 15 million years ago. Ain't no white folks around nowhere. All as Dr. The medical doctor. Huh? No, in our day. Always he's doing articles in the Journal of African Civilization. Finch. Dr. Finch. Brother Charles. Yeah. As he always says, that all of the hominid development was played out on the continent of the motherland. All of it. It all began there. It spread to other places in the world later, but that's where it was all carried out. The next one, please. Now, just in case brothers think I'm leaving us out, you know, and I'm not, I'm going to talk about the role of the male here. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. What are we looking at here? Anyone recognize this symbol? It's a scientific symbol. It's come from where? Identify the place. Where? Thank you. All right, Kemet. And who is it? Who does it represent? Ptah. Now, all of the gods and goddesses were scientific symbols. That is what they were. So don't let white folks say, y'all had many gods. No, even Budge, who's supposed to be the most outstanding European Egyptologist, said that we had what was called a polytheistic monotheism. Now, that would sound confusing. That is, we believed in the one. We believed in the one, and it was so sacred to us that we didn't even have an image to represent it. The only thing that could represent it was a circle with a black dot in it. And scientists tell us, astronomers tell us, that's how the universe started, from a black dot. And then it would all return to a black dot. In fact, that's how everything starts, from a black dot. The spermatozoa that goes in the egg has a black dot on the head of it. Everything starts out black. Some people lose their blackness along the way. But maybe that's why the white folks were trying to say, we all African. Because everything has to start out with that. And what is that black dot on the head of the spermatozoa that is lucky enough, that is fortunate enough, that is blessed enough to meet with the divine egg? What is that? That is carbon. And that is the most essential element on Earth. Of the 4 basic elements, out of the 100 or so chemical elements that we breathe in the air that is necessary for life, the 4 most important are hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. But the other 3, in fact, or the other 96 would not work unless it had the most essential of them all, carbon. And carbon by nature is, don't be afraid to say it. What is carbon by nature? Black. That's what carbon is. So if it ain't black, it ain't happening. If there ain't no black, there ain't no life.
Right.
It cannot happen.
Right.
So you wonder why we act different. You wonder why there's a difference. You have a lack of life. You got to have that blackness to get that life. You can think that's racist if you want to, but it sounds scientific to me, because carbon darn sure ain't white. In fact, sand, the lightest dirt I know, does not have all the chemical elements to make up the human body. The only earth I know that has all the chemical elements to make up the human body is the dark earth.
Right.
All the potassium, magnesium, all the zinc, all the iron, all that is only found in dog. You cannot find that in sand. Since if you want to get emotional and get into that racism stuff, I'm talking scientific now. See, white boys knew all this. That's why they rushed to try to make, and the worst thing about it is we be trying to look like them, the dead peoples. You know, but let me get off of that. Yeah, you had a point, brother? Go ahead.
Proceed.
You're right.
Break it down.
When I was a child, coming up in the late 40s and 50s, I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, and my grandmother had farmland, and she used to carpet soil.
About with that too, and I can tell you, the blacker the bird, the sweeter the juice. I know for sure. Lord knows I know. And that's all equated together there. Yes, that's right, because the earth represents, the woman is a microcosm of the macrocosm of the earth itself and the whole entire universe, okay, which we'll be talking about later as we go on. Now, I'm not going to be too much long because I don't want to wear y'all out. But thank you for that information, brother. But let me get on now to Brother Patah to show the role of the male in this. We in here too, sisters, you know. And he is shaping the egg. Why is he shaping the egg on the potter's wheel? Right, and in order for that egg to produce life, even though it contains within it all that is necessary for life, all the chromosomes, all that for male, female, all that is in there, it has to be sparked. It has to be sparked. It has to be hit by the male, but that's all we can do with it though. Once we spark it, it's gone. Right. Because she takes it over and for 40 weeks of gestation, she holds on to it and she develops it. We can't do that. That's why she's the replica of the universe. Only the female body can do that. And the black female body was the first body to do that and the most prolific to do that and produce that. But it shows our role in it in shaping the egg. Also, it explains the fact that we understood the relativity of all things in life scientifically. That is, the celestial and the terrestrial were a mirror, one of the other. That what was happening in the cosmos and the universe also was on Earth. There's nothing that happens in the whole entire universe that does not take place on Earth in some form or fashion. In fact, the whole thing that happens in the universe also takes place in the human body. The two are synonymous, one with the other. We're just a small replica of the overhaul thing there, of the body of the universe itself. And so they said, just as all things in space, so you had to know space science to understand this. See, all things in space move in an elliptical fashion in the shape of the egg. They said that the world was hatched out of a gigantic egg. But folks said, well, that's a myth. That's where the mother goose tale comes from. But they used that merely to illustrate a scientific principle. It did come out of an egg. The universe came out of that round shape there. And we can see that all living humans and many other animals, especially those, what are those that breastfeed? What do you call them? What's the scientific term? Mammals come out of eggs. And a lot of others come out of eggs. So the egg of the woman was also a symbol of the egg of the universe itself there. And that's why Dr. Ben calls it correctly. And I agree with him. And I know by scientific investigation that the vagina of woman is heaven. It's paradise. I can tell you that for sure. There's no question. Scientific investigation. I want a scientific investigation. Spiritual scientific investigation. Because I prayed first, you know. It asked for guidance and direction. I asked the Creator to reveal to me the deep spiritual truth. And I found it. Yes, I did. And you can find it too. It's there in the black woman. When you approach her that way, it will be revealed to you. Let me make sure I didn't leave nothing out here. We dealt with the 360-degree potter's wheel and everything, and that everything in it. Now, one thing I got to mention too. Now, we had an understanding of the role of the male in procreation. In fact, at the basis of most science was the understanding of procreation. Several things that we developed in ancient times. One of them was the study of genetics and the study of procreation, the science of procreation, and agriculture. And we saw the interrelationship, and astronomy. There was an interrelationship between all of those things. And they formed the basis for all other science that came out of that. One thing that causes me to believe in the Creator more than anything else, and I do not try to convince anybody of it. I've heard people stand up in church and other places and say they defending God. How can I defend the Creator of the universe? How can I defend the force that I cannot even understand? That is so much greater than I. All I can do is come into understanding as I live, but can never be it, but growing into it. So how am I going to defend it? So that's an assumption, an arrogant assumption at that. And we'll shed blood over it in defense of God. How many wars? People defending God of all things. Now that's an ego trip that people are on. But now I'm trying to, I got off my point there. Where was I before I got there? Help me. Huh? No, I was there. I passed the gift. Help me get back. I got out there. I need to get back because there was a point I wanted to make.
You're speaking about an egg.
Huh?
You were speaking about an egg when he was sitting on.
No, I wasn't even dealing with that part then. All right, let me, hopefully it'll come back to me there, and I'm sorry for getting so
I think you have to use some lemon water every morning.
Or get some sleep.
Lemon water to loosen up the...
I do. I drink lemon water every morning. What it is a question of tide.
You must have missed a couple of days.
Yeah, I didn't take my lemon water today. I didn't. I just had water. But it does make a difference on the brain. And yes.
Magnetism.
The magnetism of the brain and the brain waves. All right. Okay. Well, we were talking about the fact that we did understand the interrelationship between the three basic sciences, which was agriculture. Here's where I was. The one thing that causes me to believe in the Creator, thank you, if nothing else did, is the fact that of birth. Now that does it. That does it. The miracle of birth. That does it. That always. And when you look at some of these things that came, when women look at some of these creatures that came out of them, grow big like Shaq and all of them, I don't believe this came out of me. It's just a wonderful, positive, beautiful thing that you're able to produce there. It's the wonder of birth that, more than anything else, shows to me the power of the Creator. It also helps me to understand why conscious Africans pray today, and that ancient Africans prayed Mother, Father, God. Because the first idea, concept, understanding of the provision of the Creator for you was through your mother. Right. Before it came any other way. And the only way you can know the Creator is through how the Creator provides for you on this earth. That's how you know. All right, let me move on. There, I'll try not to get so wasted next time. The next one, please. This is the world's oldest sculpture of the goddess of love. This is Miss Namad, the Venus of Wallendorf. Now, you know that ain't right. It was found in Vienna, Austria, or it is now in Vienna, Austria, in the Museum of Natural History. And it was found, I think, in Wallendorf. Is that in Germany? Yes. This type is distributed through the Eastern Europe, even as far as Siberia, dating around 30,000 BCE. Now, note the cornrow hair. Note the ample everything. And especially the crucible of divinity, which is, in scientific language, steel tapvideo. Now, what is steel tapvideo? It is that which causes brothers to say, Lord, have mercy, when a sister walks down the street, especially in a pleated skirt. It was a sign or a symbol of worship in the ancient world. The first artists on this world, the sculptors of this, we've gone now from were what I call the Nubian Grimaldi. Now, if I don't get back there, help me. Would you please hold on to that for me? Put that in your pocket and hold it for me, in case I get stretched out. Nubian Grimaldi will bring me back. I'm trying to deal with a lot of stuff, and I'm sensitive to time now, but let me stop making excuses and go on there. We have gone through several things here. We've gone through the genus Kinopithecus, of which there was one species that we know of. We've gone through the genus and Xeniopithecus, of which there are 4 species, one of which I haven't remembered yet. And when I get home, I have to call you back and say, now I remember. And I'll be on the road driving, it'll come back to me. And the next stage we came to was Homo habilis, when we're definitely human beings at that time, about 2 million years ago. And then the next stage is Homo erectus. And then sometime between 1.6 million and 200,000, we come up with what is called Homo sapien, or Homo sapiens sapien, modern human beings. Sapien meaning wise man or thinking man. Homo habilis meant handy man. He could make things, he could do things. The difference also that made the Kinopithecus and especially the Xeniopithecines different from any other ape is opposable thumbs. Opposable thumbs enables you to become a what? Tool maker. You can do more craft with opposable thumbs there on your hand. Now, we moved into Homo sapien, or modern human beings, which we can date from about 200,000 years ago. Now we come to a segment of these modern human beings who leave out of the heartland at the foot of the mountains of the moon. See, that's why I have to stick with my notes, see. In the foot of the mountains of the moon, which is the Wurundzuri mountain range, Mount Kilimanjaro, and Mount Kenya. They come from there somewhere between 90,000 and 140,000 years ago, and they spread out around the world, and we find evidence of them in Russia, in Europe, all over the place. And they came from the region where the Nubian man comes from, the man of the bow, from the land of the bow. Now, the first skeletons of them that were found by Europeans, rediscovered, because I said Europeans can't discover anything. Right. They rediscover. And were first found in Grimaldi, Italy, near Mentone, France. And they called them Grimaldi man. I don't like that, because he was not an Italian. Mm-hmm. He was an African. So I call him Nubian / Grimaldi man, who lived somewhere around 100,000, possibly about 100,000 years ago. We know at around 40,000 years ago, he's prolific. He's all over everywhere. Okay. And he's the world's first artist. And the first human form that he creates with his hand, of all the things around him you can see. The first one that he creates is the thing he is most occupied with. Sound like me, Brother Harry. The blood. That's the first thing. I mean, this brother did this with love. There was a whole lot of love in this. I mean, divine, deep, spiritual love, adoration, worship. As a matter of fact,